You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with the two big upsets that happened in college basketball yesterday. I don't know the answer to this. I tried to find it. If you know the answer, please tweet at me at RealJacobValk. The last time two top 5 teams lost to unranked teams on the same day. I don't know if this is the first time it's ever happened. I don't know if it's happened before. I have no idea. I tried to find it. I don't know. So please tweet at me at RealJacobValk. I really want to know the answer. The first of those upsets was East Carolina beating Houston 82-73. Here's the thing about East Carolina. They are one of the worst offensive teams in the nation. They're not bad defensively. They've given up just under 67 points per game. That's the 88th best mark in the nation. But in terms of points scored per game, they've scored just under 69 points per game. That's not nice. That's the 245th best mark in the nation. Outside of Jaden Gardner, they have no scorers. So you'd think a team as great defensively as Houston, the second best team in the nation in terms of points against per game, they've only allowed 57.5 points per game, would destroy ECU. It would be a runaway. Forget about it. Yeah, Jaden Gardner will get his. He's a good player, talented player. But no one else is going to step up. Houston's going to run away with this thing. Somehow ECU dropped 82 points yesterday. Somehow they shot 47% from the field, 46% from beyond the arc. ECU had 5 guys score at least 10 points yesterday. That never happens for them. Gardner had a double-double, 21 points, 15 rebounds. Tremont Robinson-White had 17 points. The third most points he's had in a game this season. J.J. Miles had 14 points, the third most points he's had in a game this season. Bitomba Baruti had 13 points coming off the bench, third most points he's had in a game this season. Tristan Newton had 10 points, not the third most points he's had in a game this season. Tied for 4th. That's the beauty of college basketball. Some unknown team that you've never heard of, a team that you don't even know what state it's in. Do you know what state East Carolina is in? You know what's in one of the Carolinas. Is it north or south? It's north. It's in Greenville, North Carolina. can knock off one of the best teams in the nation, a team that was pushing for a 1 seed in the bracketology that guys like Joe Lunardi do. I mean, make no mistake about it. If Houston won yesterday with Nova losing, the Cougars are a 1 seed. But the Pirates wouldn't let that happen. Here's an ECU team that's now just 8-6. They're now 2-6 in conference play. They haven't won a game in over a month. They are not a good team by any metric. Good defensively. Not a good overall team. You got to give the Pirates credit. They took advantage of a Cougars team that just didn't look like they were prepared to play. I mean, this happens a lot, and it's infuriating. If you really boil it down to the ground, it's infuriating what you see over and over again in basketball. And this goes for the pros, too. You have these great teams. Houston, great team, overlooking a bad team in ECU. That's inexcusable. Any team can be better than any other team on any given day of the week. I mean, Kelvin Sampson alluded to it in post-game comments. As the coach, he has to do a better job of getting his team ready. He's right. I'm not knocking Sampson. Really good coach. But they really looked dead to the world out there yesterday. Especially in the second half. They attempted 31 shots in the second half. You know how many of those shots they hit? 8. The answer is 8. That equates to 25.8%. This is a great defensive team that allowed a bad offensive team to drop 82 against them. That's not going to work. You got to tip your cap to ECU. They took advantage of shoddy preparations by Houston. This is the best win in ECU history. They beat the 5th best team in the nation. They've never done that before. They haven't beaten a ranked team since 2002, when Dwayne Wade was still at Marquette. The Golden Eagles were the 13th best team in the nation when ECU beat them. 13! It may not seem like there's that big a difference between 5 and 13. There is. Give ECU a ton of credit for this win. They thoroughly outplayed Houston. If Houston does this next month in Indiana, they're done. Forget about it. They're going to be an early exit. Moving on now to the bigger upset. The 3rd best team in the nation going down. St. John's upsetting Villanova 70-59. The best win that the Johnnies have had in a long time. I mean, it's hard to believe it, but not that long ago, like 2 years ago, this was a program that was getting killed left, right, and center. You have Mike Rapoli, a major St. John's booster, going on Mike Francesa's show, and he absolutely kills the university. I mean, he went scorched earth on them. If you would have told Rapoli that a Mike Anderson-led Red Storm team was going to be a third-ranked Villanova team, he'd have laughed right in your face. But give St. John's all the credit in the world. They've turned this program around really quickly. They're a bubble team right now. They're 12-7. They're 500 in conference play. When the committee decides who's going to get in, and they look at marquee wins, no team is going to have a better win than St. John's beating Villanova. It is very possible that the Johnnies get in to the big dance. This is a St. John's team that is dreadful defensively. They've given up over 76 points per game. That's the 292nd best mark in the nation. They score a lot, over 79 points per game. 41st best mark in the nation. Julian Champagny, very talented player. And guys like Posh Alexander, Greg Williams, and Vince Cole are really good secondary pieces. They just can't stop anyone to save their lives. But outside of Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who could be a lottery pick in this coming NBA draft, and Caleb Daniels, all the Wildcats played like garbage. Colin Gillespie, good player, has talent, had one of the worst games I've ever seen. 38 minutes, 2 for 12 from the field, 0 for 8 from beyond the arc, turned the ball over 6 times. You know what? It felt like more. Jermaine Samuels, 25 minutes, 1 for 6 from the field. Justin Moore, 36 minutes, 3 for 11 from the field, 1 for 5 from beyond the arc. St. John's just clamped down on Nova. Their full court press utterly baffled the Wildcats. They turned the ball over 15 times. They shot 32% from the field, 27% from beyond the arc. You've heard of Press Virginia? Bob Huggins, eat your heart out. St. John's may need to change their nickname to the Red Press or the Press Storm. Whatever you think is best. I think Red Press is better. I will say this, it's really sad that this game couldn't be played at the Garden in front of a bunch of screaming St. John's and Villanova fans. Instead, it was at Carnesecca Arena in front of cardboard cutouts. This is actually the first time in 41 years that a top 5 team has played St. John's in Queens as opposed to Manhattan. But St. John's didn't care. Champagny had a really good game, had 14 points, all in the second half. He had a career-high 13 rebounds. Posh Alexander was the high man for the Johnnies with 16 points. Vince Cole had 12 points. This is a marquee win for St. John's. Make no mistake about it. This is one of their best wins in a really, really long time. Mike Anderson needs to be commended for what he's done. He was no one's first choice to take over at St. John's. Had a good run at Arkansas. Wasn't bad, but wasn't great. But I know this for a fact. No one wanted him. People were saying, okay, he's a professional coach. You're not going with some no-name assistant. He'll do a decent job. I don't think anyone expected this. No one expected Anderson in his second year with the Johnnies to have this team in a legitimate conversation for March Madness. Give him all the credit in the world. Give St. John's fans a lot of credit. They're really good fans, passionate fans, underrated fans. They just saw their team beat the third best team in the nation. And now there's a real controversy for that final 1 seed. The top 3, Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan. That's just fact. Who gets that last number 1 spot? Texas? Tennessee? I saw some people saying Alabama. I don't see that. I mean, I'll even put Drake into that conversation. Drake is undefeated. They're 17-0. The Missouri Valley Conference isn't some podunk conference. It's not a Power 5 conference by any stretch. But you remember a couple years ago when Loyola went on that magical run with Sister Jean? They were from the MVC. My vote for the final 1 seed would be Drake. Reward the undefeated teams. To give it to a 3 or 4 loss team, no, I can't get behind that. Moving on now to the other upsets that happened in college basketball yesterday. There were a few. None as earth-shattering as ECU and the Johnnies, but there were some pretty notable upsets. Like South Carolina beating Florida. And you've got to feel bad for the Gators. Right before the game, they learned that Keontae Johnson is out for the rest of the season. If you'll recall, he collapsed on the court against FSU. It had nothing to do with the coronavirus, but it was still a scary situation. And you just get this sense that that sucked all the life out of Florida. They weren't bad in the first half. They were up by 5. But in the second half, South Carolina just turned it on. In the final 6.5 minutes, the Gamecocks went on a 13-1 run to win the game. They were down by 6 before the run. They ended up winning by 6. Like I said, it just seemed like the Gators had all the life taken out of them. South Carolina killed Florida on the interior. They outscored the Gators 50-30 in the paint. They got 13-0 boards. The Gamecocks didn't shoot the ball well from beyond the arc, just 21%, 4 for 19. But A.J. Lawson still dropped 22. Seventh Woods dropped 12. Everyone else really chipped in. It was a good, well-rounded game by the Gamecocks. I really don't begrudge the Gators for losing this game. They didn't play bad. For over 30 minutes, it really looked like they were going to win this thing. Trey Mann dropped 17. Noah Locke dropped 15. Omar Payne had 10 points. Colin Castleton had a really, really, really good game. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 7 blocks. He wasn't that far away from getting a triple-double with rebounds and blocks. But there is something to be said about morale. Towards the end of the game, it just looked like the Gators were out of it. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever word you want to use. And give South Carolina credit for capitalizing on it. They're not a bad offensive team. They're not a great offensive team, but they're not a bad offensive team. They hung around long enough to go on a big run at the end of the game and upset a ranked team at home. Give the Gamecocks all the credit in the world. Moving on now to Virginia Tech Pittsburgh. And I've spoken about Virginia Tech before. I like Virginia Tech this year. They're a good team. They're really, really good defensively. Solid offensively. They have some talented offensive players. I like the Hokies this year. I really do. I was really surprised to see them lose against the Panthers. I mean, give Pittsburgh credit. They're a decently well-rounded team. They're the 144th best team in the nation in terms of points scored per game and the 155th best team in terms of points against per game. They're not a bad team. They're really not. The thing about Pittsburgh that I really like is their 3 best offensive players are their 3 best defensive players. Justin Champagnie, Au'Diese Toney, and Xavier Johnson are really, really good two-way players. And speaking of Xavier Johnson, for the first time this season, he came off the bench. Was in a little bit of a slump. Since their blowout win over Syracuse, he really hasn't been that good. Jeff Capel puts him on the bench and he explodes for 32 points. Champagnie with a double-double, 10 points, 13 rebounds. Toney dropped 14. Ithiel Horton off the bench also, dropping 15 points. This was without question the most impressive game that the Panthers have played all year. I mean, Pittsburgh's not a bad team this year. It's very possible that they could go on a run and sneak into the tournament. They're 9-5 right now, 5-4 in the conference. They're really not bad. They're not great, but they're not bad. This was a really, really good win for the Panthers. Disappointing game for the Hokies. They're usually a lot better defensively than this. But I think this is just a blip on the radar for them. I'm not as upset with this loss as I am with other teams' losses. The last upset to talk about is Georgetown upsetting Creighton. You take a look at all the teams that pulled off upsets yesterday. ECU, South Carolina, Pittsburgh, Georgetown, and St. John's. Georgetown is easily the worst one. They are a really bad team this year. They're 5-8. They're 3-5 in conference play. Patrick Ewing really hasn't done a great job at Georgetown this year. But this is a really impressive win. They beat an offensively gifted Creighton team. Creighton shot the ball well because of course they did. But Georgetown was better. Creighton shot 47% from the field, 38% from beyond the arc. Not bad. Not great, not bad. Georgetown shot 50% from the field and 48% from beyond the arc. They were just a lot better than Creighton yesterday. Like I said, any team can be better than any other team on any given day of the week. And you've got to give Javon Blair a ton of credit. The Hoyas' best player this year came up really big when the team needed him to. They're up 6 with a little over 90 seconds left in the game. Shot clock winding down. Not impossible that Creighton can come back and win this thing. But Blair banked in a 3, put the Hoyas up 9, and that was it. He had 22 points. Like I said, he's the Hoyas' best player. His supporting cast helped him out a lot. Chudier Bile had 17 points. Jamorko Pickett had 16 points. Qudus Wahab had 12 points. Like I said, Creighton wasn't bad in this game. Everyone who you wanted to have contribute for the Blue Jays contributed. Denzel Mahoney had 22 points. Mitch Ballack had 16 points. Christian Bishop had a double-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds. Marcus Zagorowski had 14 points. But Creighton is susceptible to giving up offensive explosions. They really don't have a good defense. That is going to be their Achilles heel next month. If they want to go on a big run, and they can, they're very capable of that. Greg McDermott has done a really good job with this team. If they're going to go on a big run, they really need to get better defensively. It's just that simple. I do want to preview tonight's game between two ranked teams. That, of course, is an epic Big Ten matchup. OSU versus Iowa. I've spoken about both these teams before, and they're really good. OSU is led by a really good triumvirate of E.J. Liddell, Dwayne Washington, and Justice Sueing. They're a very well-rounded team. They're better offensively than they are defensively, but defensively, they're still really good. Give Chris Holtmann credit. He's put into place a very good defensive system. He's done a great job wherever he's gone. Gardner-Webb, Butler, OSU. Really underrated coach. As for Iowa, they're all offense, no defense. Their defense is like Swiss cheese. I mean, it's non-existent. But you know what? When you have Luka Garza, You don't need to be great defensively. Garza is one of the best offensive players in the nation, if not the best. He's averaging 26.5 points per game, just under 9 rebounds per game. Joe Wieskamp is a very underrated part of that team. He's putting up 14.2 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game. Garza's shooting 45.6% from beyond the arc. Wieskamp isn't that far behind him. 45.2% from beyond the arc. I mean, OSU really doesn't have anyone that can defend Garza and Wieskamp. Iowa has the height advantage in this game, and I'd expect Fran McCaffrey to take advantage of that. I don't really like this matchup for OSU. I don't think they match up well with Iowa. I don't think they have the star power to beat them. I don't think they have the defense to beat them. They certainly don't have the height to beat them. I think Iowa is going to win this game. How about them Hawks? Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. And I'll start with the Wizards narrowly beating the Heat 103-100. But the reason I want to talk about this game isn't because the Wizards won. They beat a bad Heat team. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Instead, I want to talk about Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is now the 5th player in NBA history to score at least 25 points in his first 17 games of the season. No player has done that since Rick Barry in 66-67. I mean, Beal is having a monster season. 34.8 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game, 48.5% from the field. And the Wizards are 5-13. I mean, make no mistake about it, they almost lost this game. The Heat had opportunities to win. They just couldn't take advantage of them because they're not a good team. I thought the Wizards would be a lot better than this. Instead, it's kind of upsetting that they're wasting Beal's talents. Their defense is nothing short of atrocious. They've given up the most points in the NBA per game this year, 121.1. They have a great offense. Beal, Westbrook, Bryant, Hachimura, Bertans. These guys just can't play defense to save their lives. And because of that, Bradley Beal is going to have this great season and miss out on the playoffs. I mean, give him all the credit in the world. There was a report that came out a couple days ago from Shams Charania and Fred Katz of The Athletic that said that Beal doesn't want out. He hasn't requested a trade. He wants to stay a Wizard. In fact, he's upset that people are upset with him for not asking for a trade. I mean, it is kind of funny. We criticize players for forming super teams, but when guys want to stay loyal to the teams that drafted them, you get people saying that's not the right decision. These players are in a can't-win situation. Beal is right in that respect. I mean, there were people that were upset with Giannis for re-signing with the Bucks. They were saying, what are you doing? The Bucks aren't going to win with you. You should have left, blah, blah, blah. The guy wants to be loyal to the team that drafted him. That's not a bad thing. It's the same thing with Bradley Beal. I gave Giannis props, and I'm giving Bradley Beal props. He would fetch a monster haul for the Wizards if he was traded. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Wizards want to build around Beal. He's 27 years old. Realistically, all you need to do if you're the Wizards is get rid of Russell Westbrook because you can't win with him. We know that. And get players in who can play defense. Beal is talented enough to carry the load offensively. And even then, you've got some solid secondary pieces in Bryant, Hachimura, Bertans, and Avdija. The Wizards don't need to blow things up. It would be nice to see them trade Beal, have him play in meaningful games. But there is a way that they can get back into the playoffs with him. The main thing is getting rid of Russell Westbrook, who's a talented player. You just can't win with him. Get rid of Scott Brooks and bring in defense-first players. And watch that team improve. I'm telling you. It's not impossible for the Wizards to get back to relevancy sooner rather than later. Moving on now to Celtics Kings. The Kings pulled off a really nice upset. A 5-point win over the Celtics yesterday. 116-111. Don't look now, but the Kings have won 5 of their last 6. They're 1.5 games behind the Spurs for the 8th seed. It's not impossible that they could go on a crazy run. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I like watching the Kings this year. They're a fun team to watch. De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton look like they can be future All-Stars. Fox definitely, and Halliburton is having that type of a rookie season. 47% from the field, 42.3% from beyond the arc. Halliburton's having a really, really good under-the-radar season. Same thing with Harrison Barnes. Buddy Hield is getting his. He seems to be happy in his role. Marvin Bagley staying healthy. Rashawn Holmes is stepping up and having a really good season. 12.7 points per game and 7.9 rebounds per game. He's shooting 65.8% from the field. That is the second best mark in the league behind only Jarrett Allen. The Kings are a really fun team this year. If they rounded out their bench a little bit more, realistically, the only good bench players they have are Halliburton and Hassan Whiteside. If they added a really good backup 2, a backup 3, and a backup 4, they could sneak into the playoffs. They are a really fun team this year. And it doesn't bother me that Nemanja Bjelica wants out. Oh my god, Nemanja Bjelica wants to be traded. Who the hell cares? Bjelica is not that great. Not bad, but not great. This is a fun Kings team this year. It wouldn't surprise me if they snuck into the playoffs. But to do that, they will need to add a good backup 2, a good backup 3, and a good backup 4. That backup 4 should have been Bjelica. but that ship has sailed. Alright, now I'll give you some MLB Valk talk. And a couple teams added a couple good relievers. I'll start with the Twins signing Alex Colomé to a 1-year deal worth $6.25 million. And this is a great move for the Twins. I have no idea why Colomé was a free agent for so long. Then again, I could say the same thing about guys like Trevor Bauer and Marcell Ozuna. But you get the sense that they're going to get big contracts. For Colomé to just get $6.25 million, that's an absolute steal for the Twins. I mean, the Twins have a good bullpen, don't get me wrong. They added Hansel Robles, who's a bounce-back candidate. They still have Taylor Rogers. They still have Tyler Duffy. They still have Tyler Clippard, Caleb Thielbar, Cody Stashak, Jorge Alcala. To add Colomé to that bullpen, that's scary. That's a great job by the Twins. Make no mistake about it, the Twins are gonna win the AL Central. They're not gonna make any noise in the playoffs, because they never do. But they will win the Central. Their bullpen is scary. It may be the best in baseball. I would really need to think about it, but the Twins do have a solid case for that title. The last story to talk about is the Diamondbacks signing Joakim Soria to a 1-year deal worth $3.5 million. And this is a good move for the Diamondbacks. Soria has been a really good reliever for a long time. He's not the all-star closer that he once was, but he's still a solid reliever. Last year he went 2-2 with a 2.82 ERA. The Diamondbacks last year did not have a good bullpen. In fact, I'm still skeptical of their bullpen. Outside of Stephon Crichton, there's no one in that pen that I trust. Soria will go a long way towards fortifying their bullpen. This is an absolute steal at $3.5 million. This is a great move by the Diamondbacks. And I'll say this. There's still some really good relievers out there in free agency. Jose Alvarez, Jeremy Jeffress, Yusmeiro Petit, Sam Freeman, Aaron Barrett, Trevor Rosenthal, Ali Perez, Roberto Ozuna. I could go on and on and on. If you're a team that needs relievers, you've got your pick of really solid ones in free agency. I don't know why these guys are still available. The way baseball is going with managers wanting to shorten the game, these guys should have been off the market months ago. Some teams are going to get really, really lucky. Tomorrow's going to be a really special show. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break down all the big storylines in advance of the Super Bowl. This Super Bowl hasn't gotten a lot of buzz. I guess that's what happens when you have a team going to the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, and you have Tom Brady in it for the 10th time, and the coronavirus is still a thing. But there are still some very interesting storylines to break down. After that, you're going to get the interview that I'm going to do with Neil Golden, the author of the book on LSU bowl games. For whatever it's worth, there are some former Tigers playing in Super Bowl 55. You'll see Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyrann Mathieu, and Darrell Williams for the Chiefs. And you'll see Leonard Fournette, Kevin Minter, and Devin White for the Buccaneers. Pretty interesting. If other big news breaks, I may break that down also, but probably not. I like the idea of keeping tomorrow's show just about the Super Bowl and the Neil Golden interview. It would need to be earth-shattering for me to break it down tomorrow. Until then, I am Jacob Valk saying, just give me 26 guys on the last year of their contract. I'll win a pennant every year.